Hey everybody, it's Lebo here again with another pinball project, another thing to share with you guys. You're getting kind of a sneak peek of a game that I don't have done yet, but I'm probably 95% there. It's getting really close. And as you can see, it's gotten the usual treatment. Went through and convert all the lights to LEDs. There's a trough light at the bottom. The red posts that are at the bottom, I actually put red post lights underneath it just to kind of give it a little bit different pop. There's some extra spotlights to help light up the lady in the middle of the play field, and also a light back on the trunk. And that's one of the things that I'm about to replace here as soon as once the part shows up, because the trunk's looking a little rough. It's got a big chunk out of it. But I wanted to get back to an actual project that I really want to share with you guys today, and that has to deal with this right side ramp. Thought I had everything done, for the most part, and as I've test played it, it's played really well, except there are times when you get a really good hit from this left flipper, shooting the ball up the staircase on this ramp here on the right hand side, and instead of the ball just swiftly coming up and around, it'll want to launch itself off the ramp right up here and shoot off to the right. Doing a little investigation, I found out that it's missing a part. It's actually missing. There's a guard that actually goes here at the top. There's also one that goes here in the middle, and I haven't been able to locate either one of them. I thought I had one through Marco, and it actually wasn't the correct part. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and make it. I've got some material. I'm gonna make my own, cut it out, and I just want to show you kind of how I went about doing this. And other thing I'll mention too, there's also an arcade here locally called Tilty Bob's that I do a little bit of work for to help them out with some of their pinball machines. They're here in Lexington, Kentucky, and they have a Theater of Magic too. It plays great. It's got the pieces that are neat here, but I just went ahead and tried to make my own. Turns out that the one here in the middle, as I shoot up here in the middle without having that guard there, I've not really had any issues with it flying off. It's really this one here on the right that's important. So let me show you what I did. All right, here we go. So to make a plastic guard like the one that would be the original, and what I like to use is polycarbonate, because you can cut on it, and it's strong enough to where when balls hit it, it doesn't just shatter. It's going to be fine. I've used it for some other projects and it's worked fine. And this is what I'm showing here. I bought a while back. Actually, it's been quite a while. It was a three sheet package. Looks like it's a 1 foot wide by 2 foot long, and it's a 1/16 of an inch thick of this polycarbonate plastic. And the reason it looks blue is because it's got this protective film on both sides that you peel off after you're done cutting and forming it into what you want. But that's the material that I use. And what I'm also going to use in this case is I've got some standoffs. This is what I actually got from Marco. This one might be just a little tall, but that's okay. If it ends up being too tall, I can just grind down, make it a little bit shorter. But I wanted to start out with something a little bit longer in case if there was any question, I could make it shorter. But basically, I'm going to start out with this as being the material that I'm going to use. But then from there, I want to actually go and take I usually take some white poster board, and we'll trace it into the shape that I'm wanting. So here's just a piece of this, it's just poster board or cardstock. Just regular paper will work too, but I just kind of like this a little bit better because it holds its form a little bit better. And to try to get that profile of what I'm looking for, I'm just taking my thumb and just kind of rubbing along the edge here. And by doing that, you're kind of making the profile, the line, and then you can come back with a marker and kind of trace along that edge. From there, I knew that I was going to have it basically kind of follow up around this area, come down a little ways, and then tuck back in. So from the rest of it, it's basically just kind of eyeballing it and German with the scissors, kind of fit it in with just the poster board and just see how it looks. All right, so here we go. Here's what I ended up with as a template You can see it's kind of coming up there close to that switch, but not getting in the way of any moving mechanisms. And it's coming right along. Let's see if I can show this a little better. It's coming right along that edge. So just hold it here. Right along that edge and kind of tucking in over there to the left. And like I said, I just sort of eyeballed the profile along the top, just what I thought looked reasonable. So the next thing to do is to go transfer this actually over to the polycarbonate. Here's a scrap piece of polycarbonate I have that's just big enough for this to fit in here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to trace this. Actually, I might even tape it down. No, I don't know. I'll probably just trace this, and then I'll then take it over to my bandsaw that I have and just carefully go around the perimeter and cut it out. All right, kind of jumping ahead here because I got it cut just before I turned the camera on, so kind of jumped ahead a little bit. But here's the piece that cut out of that polycarbonate. Again, it's blue because it's got the whole protective filming that's on it. And I've actually went ahead and set it over on the game, and I marked where the dots for the screw holes should line up. Even though it's going to be elevated up, I know that if I line it right up there, that's on, and then it's on right there for that hole. So it'll be up, but it should line right up with those. So the next trick to do is take some sandpaper. I usually will start out with like 220 or so. Or you can go even a little more coarse than that, 120 if you want. And just kind of rough in to get all the sharp edges. Even though I'm not exactly on the line, that's all right. But you basically want to just sand this edge, kind of rough it down. Then I follow up with, actually, I went all the way up to 1,000 grit. It's probably a little overload or a little overkill. Overkill. But you're just trying to get the edges a little smoother so they don't look so bad. All right, next trick is let's go measure the diameter of those standoffs and see how big a hole we need to drill. All right, let's take a measurement of how big this hole should be. So just taking a look at this standoff, looks like we're around, 205 or 206 thousandths, somewhere around there, 207. So if I had a hole that was about that, or just maybe probably right on that. If it was maybe a touch under, that it would just be in there a little snugger. Let's start out with a 13/64 bit and see what this measures out to be. I don't want to do the math. 201, that is probably going to be right on it. The next size up that I have, let's see, 7/32. Let's see how much bigger that ends up being. Okay, 217, 218. If I drill with that, I'm afraid it might be a little loose, since it's always harder to put plastic back on than to drill it off, just like when you get a haircut. It's a lot easier to cut more off later than to have them glue it back on. That sucks. Yeah, not like I've done that before. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and start out with this bit, drill it into this, and then we'll test fit the piece. The other thing I wanted to show you too, just with the thickness of this polycarbonate, it was 16-inch thickness, and you can kind of see here, it's pretty close. There's a little bit of an up and down slop, but I'm thinking that once I run the screw in and I tighten it down, it's going to kind of bite down on that a little bit more, and so it should be all right. If I had gone with a 1/8 inch, it would not have worked. It would just been way too thick. So this should be just fine. All right, so take a look. Here is the perhaps the finished piece. I've got the plastic film off of it. I've got those posts, the little standoffs mounted. Really pretty happy with how it's looking here so far. So I might need to kind of break that edge just a little bit more. Take that really high grit, 1,000 grit or whatever, sandpaper, and just kind of run it on that edge. Just take that off. But let's go take a look to see how close this is gonna line up and look on the game. All right, so I've got a couple screws that I ran down inside these standoffs just to kind of hold it in place. Let's see how it looks. All right, so once I tighten the screws, it would be up about like that. And actually, you know, it looks like it's looking pretty good. The only thing I'm thinking, and this I commented on this earlier, I think this may be standing just a little too tall. I mean, once the ball hits this thing and it bounces it back down, it may still ram itself into this gate. So I might want to lower it down. I mean, I guess I could have done it without the standoffs at all, but the one that I've seen before, it had a little bit of a standoff, and I think I do need to get it up just a little bit. So my next step, I'm going to take those standoffs back off and grind them down, probably about maybe about half of the height of what they are now. So that'll put them somewhere around, I don't know, a little over 1/4 inch to maybe 3/8 or so, and we'll give it another shot. Here's the standoffs. You can see what I did is I've basically taken some tape. I had some white vinyl tape, kind of like electrical tape. I think you can get it over in the same area that you would normally find electrical tape. They have some that's in different colors, and I had bought some a while back, but basically just marked off both of these pieces, taking it about halfway down from what it was. Like I said, it's probably ended up being about 3/8 or so thick when I'm done. And I took a screw, ran it in the backside here. These are pretty big actually on the inside. The wall is not that thick, so you can run the head of a screw down, no problem. Ran a nut up here just to kind of hold it in place, and I've got my wonderful 10-inch fancy disc sander from Harbor Freight that works great for stuff like this and whatever project. So here we go. Got it down pretty close to the plastic, down to the white tape. You can go a little bit more. Yeah, pretty much right on it. So, all right, so I'm gonna do, I'm gonna clean up this edge here. I'm gonna transfer this screw and this nut. Oh, sorry, I couldn't even see it. I'm gonna kind of clean this edge up, transfer the screw and nut over to the other piece, and do it again. Here is the hopefully finished product. I've got the standoffs back in. Now they're both shorter. I've had some of these black screws. They didn't have to be black, obviously. But now I'm dropping it in. I'm really liking how that's lining up now. So now this thing it's lowered. Once I tighten these screws down, I'm gonna put nylon lock, the lock nuts underneath the bottom to lock it down. But when the ball comes up through here, it won't smack into this anymore. So, and right down here on this other edge, it should be low enough to where it keeps the ball in, but not high enough. Well, the ball's not going to smack it, is what I'm trying to say. I got to raise the playfield back up so I can get into where I need to put these nuts in, and then hopefully we'll have a finished product. Now we got it installed, and that is fitting in there just fine. I think we got it. Pretty well how we want it. So here we go. Here's that edge. Mount it in just right. Got good clearance around everything here. Not going to interfere with any moving mechanisms, and it should contain the ball quite nicely. So we're going to give it a shot. Working a lot better now. Used to be whenever I'd hit that right center stick or right staircase, the ball would go flying up high. There we go. So there's an example of going over. See if I can hit it again. Nope, missed it. As you can see, the center staircase is not really having a problem, even though I don't have a guard. But the right side, it needed it. Anyways, you got to see at least an example of it doing once there, so. Yeah, let's just drain it. All right, well, hopefully that helps. Somebody else wants to try to make a guard for a game. Those things work great. Another thing that they're really useful for is for plastics like these down here, you know, to keep them from getting broken. If you were to take this off and trace it on that polycarbonate and cut it just a little bit bigger, you know, something like between a 1/16 of an inch, a little bigger than this, you know, tracing it with like a Sharpie or something. It works great. I've done that for a couple of my games. It is a little bit of work to go do that, but you know, the nice thing is that it helps protect very well, protects your plastics instead of having to have a big, you know, kind of a goofy washer or something underneath. It just looks better in my opinion. But all right, have fun, guys.